Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm hoping everyone can hear me okay. I've had lots of technical difficulties today, so speak now, forever hold your peace if you can't. But thank you, Steve, for the introduction. Like you said, my name is Megan, and I'm a Cyber Protect Officer for Avon Somerset Police. And just in case the camera wasn't working, I have got a nice picture of my face there for you all. But less about obviously me personally. What do I do as a Cyber Protect Officer? So my role within Force is aimed at educating everybody about what cybercrime looks like, how you can protect and prevent yourself from becoming a victim in the first instance, but I'm also there for after people become a victim. So I'm there to help protect them from further harm in the online and digital realm. And we do that through a variety of different ways, whether it's through workshops, one-to-one sessions with victims, general public groups, community groups like WIs, etc. We have a bit of a joke on our team that if you stand still too long, I'll start to talk to you about your passwords and your online safety. Large part of that and why I'm obviously here today is supporting young people. You know, young people are digital natives. They have grown up with technology. It is never going to go anywhere. It is going to be an ever-present part of their life for a long time. Unfortunately, with that comes a lot of threats that young people will see specifically targeting them. And I always think, you know, we teach our children and young people how to cross the road safely. We teach them to look both ways, but do we teach them how to protect themselves online? You know, we might do a little bit, but not to the extent that we absolutely should. So what I want to cover in my part of this session today is looking at, okay, what are some of the top threats that we are seeing to young people at the moment? And the first one is sextortion. Now, I call it the sextortion pandemic, but unfortunately, this has been a massive problem, particularly within Avon and Somerset for the last few years. Now, statistics have shown us that we've had a 40% increase of reports year on year for the last 3 years, and that predominantly it's young boys that get targeted the most. Now, you might have heard of sextortion before, you might not have. Sextortion is a little bit of like an evolution of sexting. So it's the sharing of sexual images, but we have an extortion element thrown in. Now, this normally starts with a young person engaging in a conversation on a social media platform, and they start to build quite a quick relationship with that person and normally become sort of quite like emotionally invested. The relationship and the conversation then progresses to video calls or the exchanging of videos and photos. If it's a live video call, like a FaceTime call as an example, that's then screen recorded or screenshotted by the offender, or the images and videos have been received by the offender, which the victim has been coerced into sending. The conversation then changes very quickly, and the victim is told, okay, unless you pay me X amount of money, and that can range from a couple of hundred to £1,000 to £2,000. Don't normally see it more than about £2,000. It normally tends to target the level of funds that that person might have access to or is reasonable for them to have access to. But they're told, unless you pay me X amount of money, we're going to release your photos and videos onto social media. We're going to send them to your college, your university, your school, if they're still of school age, and onto, you know, maybe your employer if it's a little bit later on. Now, this can become, you know, extremely disruptive and very, very isolating for a lot of victims. There were some really horrible cases throughout the national level where, unfortunately, young people were going on to take their own lives because of how isolated these victims were becoming. And the reason being is that the young person also gets told, okay, you're now complicit in a crime, so you can't tell anyone about it, you can't speak to anyone because you'll be arrested and you'll be held accountable, which becomes even more isolating for our victim here. Now, there's the simple advice associated with sextortion, and what we give out regularly is don't panic, don't communicate, and don't pay. You know, when they get you in that state of panic, you will quite often then lead to make decisions that you might not ordinarily make. And you have to remember, we've got, you know, an offender here that is pushing and poking and really, really, you know, aggravating the victim and panicking them and causing extreme distress and upset. Don't communicate with the offender. So as soon as you cease communication with these criminals, they tend to just move on because they realize they're not going to get anything from that victim and it's not worth their time anymore. So as soon as you stop communication, they tend to move on. And don't pay. As soon as you pay them money, they tend to ask for more and more and more money because they know the person has access to it until they've completely cleaned that person out. Now, there's loads more information around sextortion specifically on the Avon and Somerset Police website, including a little campaign video, which is really good at highlighting actually how this journey happens, and the, where to report, what to do, and how to respond. There are loads of different ways, resources available for advice and guidance on this on the website. Threat number 2 that we see is something called money muling or money laundering. Now, this again targets young people, normally of a secondary school age, and those that have access to their own finances. So they might have their own bank account, they might have access to their own bank card, anything like that at all. And it's normally, unfortunately, through a platform called Snapchat. I have seen this evolve into Instagram and TikTok, but Snapchat tends to be the predominant platform. And what happens is young people see adverts essentially on Snapchat stories, and it'll be adverts of like the latest technology, a fancy watch, whatever the latest designer trend is for clothing, or simply just wads of cash. And it'll say something like quick money, easy, quick turnaround, requires no skill, no experience. You could have this could be your money. And that's quite enticing for a lot of young people, particularly if they're at the age where, they've started to have to do chores to earn their pocket money, or they are, in a, economically deprivated area where they do need extra money, or they want to help to contribute towards their family's finances. So they'll message and they'll say, I want this, how can I, get this essentially. They're then told, okay, all you need to do is give us your bank details and we're going to send you about £2,000. You get to keep £200 of it, and then we're going to, you need to send the rest to this other bank account. Don't worry, it's not illegal. It's completely legit, they might say. And they'll use a lot of terminology that makes it seem like it is very genuine. What happens then is the young person receives the money, transfers it on, and off it goes. Now, this tends to target a particular area at a time. So it might target Bristol, it might target Taunton, it might target Bath, it could be anywhere, because these criminals will be trying to recruit young people within a certain area so that they can eventually cash out. And it means that the last person in the chain gets spoken to in person. They get told, okay, you need to go to the ATM at that bank, withdraw the money, and then we're going to collect it from you. And that's all you need to do. Now, that threat then becomes very real as well, because you've got an in-person threat. You've got someone there actually engaging with that young person and potentially taking a lot of money from them. But what's happened at the start of the chain is that, young person has likely, unfortunately, received money from a victim of fraud, or potentially another money mule. Or what does also happen is it links with sextortion, and the child or young person is told, okay, unless you do exactly as we say and move this money, we're going to release your images. So the two kind of link together. There is a really great campaign specifically for young people. It's called Don't Be Fooled, set up with UK Finance and CIFAS, which are two of the big organisations in relation to financial safety. And they have, like I said, the Don't Be Fooled campaign, specifically aimed at young people, helping to raise awareness of actually how this looks, how it might darken your door, or you might be approached by a criminal, but also what you can do if you have participated in this, if you have become a money mule without necessarily realising it, the support that's available for you, and also then off the back of that, some of the consequences of actually prolonging and continuing to partake in that offence. It's really good and quite eye-opening. There's a really good document on there that I'll just highlight that looks like a job advert. We take this along to a lot of our engagement events where we're trying to target young people, and they always pick it up thinking that it is a job advert, and actually it's a money mule awareness leaflet. It's quite good. Top threat number 3, and this one kind of breaks down into 3 separate categories, and it's the threat of artificial intelligence. Now, we hear artificial intelligence lurking around all the time, but actually do we all necessarily understand what it is we need to be worried about? Well, first of all, it's establishing between what's real and what's fake. We already know from a variety of different studies that young people already struggle to establish what's real and what's not on the internet. They have this misconception that just because it's on the internet must mean it's true. When we add in artificial intelligence and how easy it is to create fake images, false information, false videos, false audio recordings, something that they're already struggling to differentiate becomes so much harder. Then we have the threat of, creating relationships, if you like, via artificial intelligence. And that sounds strange, I know, but there are cases where young people have engaged in conversation with an AI chatbot. And I put ChatGPT up there as the example because it's one of the most well-known AI chatbots. But there's been cases of young people, like I said, engaging in conversation and actually looking to develop relationships with an AI chatbot. And there was a case last year, wasn't necessarily a young person in this case, but it can be applied in any circumstance, of someone who tried to assassinate the Queen a couple of years ago, sorry. It was someone who tried to assassinate the Queen because his AI chat girlfriend had told him to do so. Now, he developed an emotional relationship with that AI chatbot and then was being influenced by that artificial intelligence source to commit, really nasty crimes. And there are unfortunately lots of cases of, like that across the UK. And then the last threat in relation to AI is actually, how do we protect our children? Now, there's a really good video, which I will add to the resources that will be going on the website, created by T-Mobile. And what it does is it talks about actually, okay, we as parents and carers are actually probably the biggest threat for our children and AI intelligence, because we share photos and videos of our children on social media. Now, we see in the news all the time that celebrities get impersonated, or their images get used by criminals to create artificially generated images, and that's a celebrity. But actually, that can happen to our children as well. So in the video, you see a young person whose photo gets shared by her parents. She then gets artificially aged up to create what she would look like in a few years' time, and creates videos, creates voice imitation of her that they've taken from a video again, to expose her on digital platforms. So actually, we need to protect our children's digital privacy, because we don't know where artificial intelligence will go in a couple of years, let alone where it will be in, say, 6 months' time. But it's a really good video. Like I said, T-Mobile, strongly recommend having a little look, and I will get that sent through to you guys as well. Oh, let me get started to play then. There we are. So that's a little summary of the work that I do and some of the threats that we're seeing in relation to young people specifically. If you do ever have any questions or concerns, or you work within an organisation where you would like us to come in and do workshops with your young people or your staff, anybody, then please do let me know. That's my email address on screen, and any way we can help, we absolutely will. But thank you very much for having me this afternoon.